Hello and welcome back to ProAm Predictions. I am Paul O'D and I am the amateur side. And of course, as always, on the professional side, we have Bellator bantamweight contender Brian the Pikeman Moore. How are you doing today, Brian?
Oh, good, Paul. How are things?
Very, very good. And I suppose first we have to get into it. There was some exciting news came out of Bellator. They did announce their schedule for the start of the year, and the light heavyweight tournament. What were your thoughts on the show itself and how everything went down and with the light heavyweight tournament?
Yeah, it was exciting to get, some good positive news. And there was a lot of good breaking news there. A lot to look forward to in 2021. Like heavyweight tournament, I'm a huge fan of tournaments. I think fans are too. So
Yeah.
we're spoiled with that. I just wish it was a 135-pound tournament, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think there's six. We could have done nearly a 24-man tournament or whatever, but we could have done 16 for sure.
yeah,
But the light heavyweight tournament has some big names there, so it's going to be a cracker. But Bellator historically, they put on tournaments and they smash it out of the park every single time. So I'm thrilled about that. And then you had the huge news about Showtime
yeah.
in the BBC News, the iPlayer. Today that broke as well, and you've got some big fights, including the 135-pound bantamweight title. So lots of great things to look forward to.
Yeah, the one concern there I have with the BBC deal, as exciting as it is to be on mainstream and such a huge kind of a stable of TV in the BBC, I'm concerned about the talks of iPlayer and will we get to watch the fights in Ireland? And I know there was some concern from a lot of parts of Europe as well that they don't have access to the BBC iPlayer. I hope these details are ironed out in the next couple of weeks, so there's not so many people kind of getting on board, getting on their case about it. But look, other than that, it seems to be all good news coming out of Bellator.
Yeah, it's just a trend, isn't it? Every time Bellator do something, people are just knocking them immediately, and
Yeah,
they always manage to make it work. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They've been on Sky and CBS the last time I fought. They're two huge networks, two huge shows. So like they're going to make it work for the Irish fans. They know how invested Irish fans and fighters are in Bellator now, so they're going to
yeah.
make it work. So I just said to everybody, just hang tight. Good
It'll
news is going to come, obviously.
it'll work itself out exactly.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there was another announcement that Juan Archuleta is defending his bantamweight title against Sergio Pettis. What do you make of this news, and are you excited by that matchup? And is it obviously it's one that you'll be keeping an eye on, being that you're a little bit invested in it?
Yeah, well, my plan is to get a fight on that same card, and that's what I'm gunning towards. I would have liked an April return, but I don't mind delaying it for a couple of weeks and getting on that card and really studying both men. Um,
Yeah,
Look at it's to be honest, I think Archuleta goes out and does his work and puts it on him, and I think he'll win every one of the 5 rounds. I don't think he'll finish. I don't think either men are going to be too engaged. I think there'll be a lot of moving around and not a lot of inaction. But I think it'll be a good fight nonetheless. But I do think
yeah.
Archuleta will win 50-45. I just think that he's a bigger, stronger, more skillful man. And I'll be looking to keep an eye close on, keeping a close eye on both men for sure.
Very good. And do we have any idea of any opponent or anything for yourself that you're looking at on that card? I know we've spoken before about the Brett Johns fight, but do you think because it's in America that it might be someone else?
The Brett Johns fight will be phenomenal, and both of us want it, and a lot of fans want it. But I don't think they're going to do it in America. If I had
Yeah.
to put my money on it, I think they're going to keep that for a big fight in Europe, and why not? Um, I think they're going to give me someone stateside, or maybe a Brazilian who's been running his mouth at me for a while. Maybe him. We'll see.
One of the affiliations to the Pitbull team, I would imagine that is.
Yeah, we'll see.
No comment out of Brian the Pikeman Moore. Look, we have to talk about it, and I suppose since we're doing our predictions, we might as well get started on this Bellator light heavyweight tournament. And even though it was just the quarterfinals announced and the kind of the bracket was announced, I do want to push you and see if we can your opinion on who's going to win this thing outright and why. Um, I have the odds here in front of me, and current champ Vadim Nenkov is actually the favorite for this. But I want to get your opinion. Who do you think? Are you excited by the first matchups in the tournament, and who do you think is your outright winner for it?
Yeah, the matchups are fantastic, and I know you have the advantage of just say you pull names out of a hat, the excitement of it, but there's also the big advantage when you place these guys and you match them up in advance. And I think they've done a great job with
Yeah.
the matchmakers have here. The overall winner, I'm very surprised with some of the odds. I'm not surprised at all that Nemkov is favored. That guy's a beast. It will take a big, it's like a hell of a man to beat him.
Yeah.
However, Corey Anderson is 10-1. That's
Yeah, that's a
crazy.
shock.
Yeah, especially at how good the guy has looked in recent times. You know, you've Ryan Bader who's 11-2. He's behind Yoel Romero, but we got to remember at something. It's a tournament.
Yeah.
You know, how durable are these guys? How good are these guys at turning back around? Are they going to stay in shape out of camp? There's so many more factors. You know what I mean? And they have a very quick turnaround time. You know, I think the first fights are April, and then is it June, July, and then they're finishing up in August or October, something like that.
October, I
So it's
believe,
yeah, so that's quick from April to October.
yeah.
3 fights in that span.
Especially for those
coming in.
heavier guys to be getting in there 3 times in the year as well.
Absolutely. You ask any fighter and they've say taken 4 or 5 leg kicks in a fight. It takes weeks for to recover off that. So
Yep.
it'll depend. You might, for instance, you have Nemkov and he fights and he has a 3-round war, but then Romero beats Rumble Johnson by knockout after 10 seconds. All of a sudden the odds shift because he has more time to recover. He's only had to expend 10 seconds or a minute or whatever in there rather than
Yeah.
someone who's had to go in through. Is it a 5-round? I'm sure it is actually 5 rounds now that I think of it.
I'm not sure because you have Rumble and Yoel are a co-main, and they did this the last time with the Featherweight Grand Prix where the co-mains were only 3-round fights, which I think is an unfair advantage. I think they should make all regardless if it's co-main or main, they should all be 5-round fights.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're going to have to do it at the final. So why not do it all throughout? Plus, make it tough. They're getting paid very well for a tournament. You know, we want to see him in there more anyway. So yeah. But it'll all depend on how it pans out. You know, I think the odds are quite accurate, except for the Corey Anderson one that just pings out with me at 10-1, being crazy odds.
The one thing I would say there about Corey Anderson, and the reason I believe that he's 10-1 and his opponent Yag Shamuradov is also 10-1, I think that's why. I think because this guy's coming in as a complete unknown, very similar style set to Corey Anderson, but a bit more power from what I've seen of him. I just think I was shocked as well to see him at such a high price, but I think because he's coming in there against a complete unknown right off the bat, I think they're just a little bit tentative.
Yeah, perhaps, but you know, Corey Anderson, he had a great run in the UFC. He was highly touted before he left on his own accord.
Yeah,
I would have thought he would have been, you know, the 5-1 kind of range, but I was wrong. But 10-1, you know, it'd be almost silly not to put money on him at this. You know, from looking at it, you look further down the odds. Phil Davis, he's fighting Nemkov first. I don't think he gets by him. That's a tough fight, but 16-1, and Lyoto Machida, I don't think has a hope in hell. He's just a much smaller man than you know. I love Lyoto. I think he's a legend, but I just think with the likes of Nemkov, Bader, Romero, it's going to be very hard to get by those 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm of a similar opinion. I coming into this, and when I was under the assumption that there was going to be a light heavyweight tournament, my whole argument was, please don't match up Yoel and Rumble in the first round. Now, they do that for a reason, because it's kind of horse before the cart kind of thing. If you don't match these guys up in the first round, you might never get the fight. But my concern with this is they're 2 huge names coming into Bellator. Yoel he's looked hesitant of late, and he hasn't been the most explosive that we've seen him earlier in his career, and Rumble's been out for a long time. My big fear is that fight in and of itself might be a letdown, being that it's the first round fight. I think if they got a fight under their belts, it would be a better fight. I'll go before you here on the picks, and I'll let you know who I think will win it. I think it'll be Rumble Johnson and Corey Anderson in the final. And I think Rumble clips him. I think Rumble gets it done. And that's if we see the old Rumble.
So I'm just trying to look for the bracket here. Or I'm looking at the bracket here, should I say. You think who puts Nemkov out?
Rumble.
He's the favorite. Who you think Rumble puts him out in the semifinals? Okay.
And I'm a huge Nemkov fan, but
yeah. And do you think on the opposite side, you're thinking Anderson puts Bader out.
I just think he dry humps Bader into submission.
Yeah, look at it. It's very hard to pick because of how the format and how it's all laid out. But then you look at the featherweight tournament, and we could have said the very same, but the cream rose to the top of that. You have the three best fighters remaining in that, and then when the welterweight tournament was there, Roy McDonald, who in my opinion at the time was a cream of the crop, and he rose as well. So you're looking at if you're looking at who's going to get there, my opinion is I think Nemkov, he's just what he done to Bader.
Yeah.
How he's looked in his tenure with Bellator, I just think that he gets it done. But he will have very tough nights in the office getting there.
Yeah.
Again, if tournaments go anyway, but I think the bookies got it right with that. I think they got it horribly wrong with Corey Anderson.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to make a few bucks, there wouldn't be any harm putting something on Anderson too. But I'm going to go with Nemkov. I'm a fan of what the work he's done so far. But then you got Bader in there. You got Romero, I know he's a slow starter and he can be tentative, but he's so smart. He's there to win rounds. It's I think you've got four guys to really look at. You've got Nemkov, Romero, Bader, and Anderson, in my opinion.
So you're not even giving my pick a shout in the top four.
No. It's like Johnson is a serious athlete. So him getting back into shape isn't going to be a major thing, but he's been out of competition for a hell of a long time. And you're getting in against the guys who like you look at Romero's last fight. I know he's lost a couple, but he's been fighting at the upper echelon. You got Bader, who's was a two-time champ until recently, and he got dethroned by Nemkov. He's just jumping in with sharks, and I don't think he'll survive.
Yeah, look, my whole reasoning behind this is because of how tentative Yoel is. I think if Rumble gets in there and Yoel plays that waiting game against the side of the cage, I think Rumble clips him and puts him to sleep. You can't let Rumble tee off on you. It's a horrible tactic. And with the Nemkov one in the semi-final, it's similar. My opinion is, while Nemkov has looked world class against stylistic matchups like Bader and others that he has fought, he's never fought anyone in the striking range that can put him to sleep with one punch. So I'd just be concerned for him there. It's an outside pick, definitely, but I just see Rumble. If we see the old Rumble, that's the big question mark. But if we do see the old Rumble, I can see him picking up the 1 million at the end.
Look at it. It is very interesting. And I know I discounted Phil Davis, but you look at his wrestling and you look at his last fight in particular, he goes out and he plays it smart against Nemkov. Then he's got, either Johnson or Romero, you know what I mean? It's
killer's row.
It's 100%. So it's just, it's going to be very, very interesting to see, who comes out of each of these matchups and who advances. But look, if I had to do it, if I had to put my money on it, I'm going for the young, hungry champ. That's Nemkov right now. I think it'd be very hard to dethrone. But look, he's in a tougher situation than he was, say, 6 months ago before they made a couple of more of these signings.
You can be sure of that, yeah.
Yeah.
But he could be counting the pennies all the way to the bank as well, I suppose. We do have to move on to this weekend's card at UFC 258. Big enough card, but there is question marks in a lot of the MMA Twitter sphere and other places that is it a pay-per-view card? Obviously, the main event is a big one, but you work down through the card. Now, for me personally, the main card, while they're not the biggest names, I think there's some phenomenal matchups on that card. I suppose we get started with the championship bout at welterweight. You have Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. We all know about Kamaru. Kamaru's on a 15-fight win streak. Huge wins over Masvidal, Woodley, Covington. He's beaten the elite of that division. Gilbert Burns kind of coming in on a 6-fight win streak. Bit of an unknown in the sense of where he stands in the division because he hasn't fought too many of the upper echelon guys. Obviously, the win over Woodley, but it looks like Woodley was kind of at that point of his career where he couldn't hang there anymore. And there is obviously the question mark over Burns that he was KO'd by Hooker at lightweight. What do you make of this fight? And I suppose you can go first on this one. Who do you see picking up a victory in this one?
I love this fight. I absolutely love this fight. Speaking about Burns and Hooker, some people belong in a certain weight class. Burns didn't. If you look what he has done at welterweight, don't get me wrong, he was a very good fighter at lightweight,
Yeah,
top tier, but he is world class at welterweight. So I would not take anything away from Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker was there to do a job, but I just welterweight is Burns' home. Now he's outstanding grappling. He has massive knockout power. I think this is Usman's biggest challenge to date. To be honest, I know he's had a lot of time to prepare. He's had Gilbert Burns in his crosshairs, all the way back to the first Fight Island when that got cancelled.
yeah,
And some people may argue that Colby Covington was a bigger test, but I think you've got a different dynamic on former training partners.
yeah,
You know, you gotta trust me on this. When you spar someone for the first time, it's always the most difficult because there's a lot of feeling out, but then you get used to the person's style. You know what I mean? And Burns will have got used to Usman's style just the same. So it's going to be
yeah.
very, very interesting. That being said, Kamaru Usman is phenomenal. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for how good he is. You look at the greatest pound for pound fighter ever and the best welterweight to ever do, George St. Pierre. What was so remarkable about George was how well rounded he was. Kamaru Usman is that again. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Just looking back at his last fight with Covington, his striking was fantastic, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
He isn't just a wrestler that got in at the Ultimate Fighter that had a good double leg with decent submissions from top. He's a very, very well-rounded guy, very intelligent fighter. And looks comfort from both stances. His wrestling is phenomenal. He shut everything Woodley said. He shut him up. So I think Kamaru, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for anyone in the division to best him, and I don't think Burns will get it done. Even though I think it's extremely interesting to see how this plays out.
So is your pick Kamaru?
Yeah, Kamaru Usman was my pick by decision. I'm not picking a win. I don't know. I'm looking forward to see where Burns' gas tank is in 4 and 5. You know what I mean? I know he's done 5, but I'm wanting to see with Usman's pace where Burns will be. Now, I'm sure he knows what kind of an athlete Usman is from training with him as well. So I'm sure he's well conditioned, but it's a different animal getting in with someone of that like Usman who's going to push that pace in championship rounds. So that'll be interesting. I still think that he will get he will win by unanimous decision. Don't think he'll finish.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I'm on Usman as well. I was talking to you earlier in the week, and I was back and forth on this all week. I was Usman early on, and then I was Burns for a while. But you just look at some of the common opponent there that stands out is Tyron Woodley, of course, and the difference being Usman beat Woodley when he was on top of the world and looked unbeatable. Woodley was doing then what Usman is doing now. He was beating guys and doing just enough to beat them, and very intelligent fights. And Usman's doing that to everybody now. Anyone that comes up and is a big contender, Usman seems to do that. And
I kind of disagree.
I
disagree. I'm just going to cut straight out. You look at Woodley, and a lot of his competitions were. Did he win? I'm not sure. I think I might give it to this guy. I think he done enough. But Usman is putting a stamp on every one of his fights. Now, they mightn't be sometimes the most interesting. They mightn't be the most bloody, but they are dominant. They are very dominant. I know the Covington fight, that was, I looked at it, I thought when I first seen that, I thought it was quite closer than it was. But when I seen it, I've looked at it twice since, and I thought Usman actually won it by a bit more than I originally thought.
Yeah.
But he's a dominant guy. I think that's the difference between him and Woodley. Woodley, when he was on the top, he was a great champ, and he had a massive win streak.
Coasting to victories a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, that's the difference. Like Usman he is intelligent. He's a round winner. He's not a massive finisher, but he has a pace that he'll just keep going. You know, he's a crazy pace. So he's similar to Woodley in a way, but he's like Woodley, with a much bigger gas tank, I think. You know, but but I think Kamaru he's a physical presence as well. It's going to be very hard to best, very hard to beat.
Yeah, no, and for those reasons that I think Woodley as well will get it done, or Woodley will get it done. Usman will get it done. But yes, going back to the Burns versus Woodley, I just think that was a much depleted Woodley when Burns fought him, and it's not enough to go off. So yeah, I'm going with Usman, and I do believe he will finish him. I believe he'll finish him in late in the fourth or the fifth round.
You think you get the? How do you think you'll get the finish?
TKO or KO late on. I think Burns will tire.
Yeah.
Because like you say, Usman just puts on a relentless pace, and he just keeps it ugly the whole way through, and keeps you working for every minute of every round. So I can see a finish there.
The only, obviously not the only thing, but the big thing that Usman needs to look out for is that huge right hand that Burns possesses. If it does hit the ground, you're dealing with a guy who's unbelievable jiu-jitsu. But I do think that Usman's been grappling since he was a kid as well. He's not going to be easy to submit. But it's very interesting what you did say. You look at Usman's last fight; he put Covington away in the fifth, and then we're wondering now what's Gilbert's gas tank like? What's it going to be like? And you can push a prowler, hit a rower, do all these things, and be super fit getting in there. But when it's for a huge fight, those 5 rounds against someone of that caliber, it's a different kettle of fish again. So it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be a fantastic fight. It's a great fight. But I do have Usman, and you have Usman too. So
yeah. Moving on to the co-main event, we have the girls are going to shine in this one. You have 2 prospects at 115 pounds, and Macy Barber is obviously coming off that loss against Roxanne Modafferi early last year. It was a bit of a freak incident where her knee popped out in the grappling exchanges. Now, I still believe that Modafferi would have won that fight regardless. Just a phenomenal performance from Roxanne. But that, of course, her only loss. We haven't seen her since. And then she's coming in against Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso has been 3-3 in her last 6, but she's been a prospect forever. She's had some tough losses. She's lost to Carla Esparza. She's lost to Tatiana Suarez. You can't read too much into them when you're very early in your career. It's going to be power versus precision here for me. I think Grasso is a tidier boxer, but Barber obviously possesses far more power, and she's just more dangerous when she gets her hands going. What do you like this fight, and what do you make of what do you think would be next for one of these girls given a big win here?
Yeah, I really like this fight, but every fight, it's easy to say this could be fight of the night, but every time I've said that, they haven't been. So I'm not going to even jinx that.
By the way, I have a prediction for fight of the night, and I'll tell you later on. But go on.
I have my prediction as well,
okay.
but it's actually not this. But this will be exciting. This will be very exciting. But I've Macy Barber. I think she's just a little bit too much. She has a little bit too much power. I think she's not that she's been in tougher fights, and Grasso has lost a high level competition, but I think she's just on a good momentum at the minute. I know besides her last fight, it's been over a year since she last competed, but she was active right up till then. So
yeah,
I'm going to pick Barber in this. Now, like you said, it's power versus precision. I think you're very correct in saying that. But I think Barber just is better everywhere, and that's who I'm going to go with in this. I'm going to go decision again. I think it's going to be another decision win.
Yeah, I'm on Barber as well, but I think this is a very, very close match. If I go back to Alexa Grasso's performance over Karolina Kowalkiewicz and that win, when she started to let her hands go late in the first and through the second, she looked absolutely phenomenal. If we see that Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber, it's going to be an absolute barnstormer of a fight. But yeah, look, I think Macy Barber will bounce back. She calls herself the future. I think after this one, she will be very close to, if not in line for a title shot. So yeah, I would see it. And again, I do see it going the distance for that one. It would be a behest of me at this point not to mention, by the way, that our records are not good.
No, why? Why are you going there?
Our records are not good, and I don't like the fact that we're both on the same side for the first 2 picks.
Yeah, I know.
So for anyone that's been watching us so far, my record is 7 wins and 10 losses, and Brian's is 6 wins and 11 losses. So I'm just about edging it, but it's not pretty. It's certainly not pretty.
But the fights in 2021 have been fucking crazy. My predictions this week is the safest bet ever. So we'll get there. But I'm bouncing back this week. I'm
Okay.
gonna let you. You
Well,
always have these crazy fucking ones. You can stick to them. Mine's as safe as a house this week.
you say I have crazy ones, but I'm still winning so far. Just about. It's nothing to brag on, though. No, but
No.
certainly the dogs have been barking this year. Yeah, it's been an interesting one, but I'm just concerned that we're all on the same page so far. That's just worrying me a little bit.
Yeah.
We will move on to the next fight on the card. You have Kelvin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch in the middleweight division. Kelvin not looking pretty, 3-fight skid, and myself and Liam Og were talking about it earlier. The guy just doesn't belong at 185 for us. He's so small there. Now, the one thing in his favour here is Heinisch isn't one of the longer guys in the division. He's not one of the taller guys in the division. Heinisch himself is 1-2 in his last 3. He does have that KO over Meerschaert in his last fight. And the one thing that I would look to there in his last fight, the leg kicks against Meerschaert really hurt Meerschaert early, and it's what opened up the finish for him. I think with Gastelum being heavy on his legs, this could be another very rough night for Kelvin Gastelum, and it's not a division you want to go 0-4 in either. So I suppose I'll go first in this one. I am just slightly leaning towards Heinisch to pick up a victory, and I would hope that if all going well for Kelvin Gastelum and he doesn't get caught, I can't imagine he would, but if he doesn't get caught, I think he's got to get back on that diet and get down to 170.
With this, I think that it's more of a discipline issue with Gastelum of not hitting the 170 mark.
Yeah.
That being said, he has performed well at 185. If you look at his last 3 losses, it's against the who's who. You got Israel, the champ. You got Darren Till. That was a split decision, a very close split decision.
And the Hermanson one, he just got caught.
Yeah, with a heel hook. And Jag is a fantastic grappler. He showed what he can do against Souza as well. So, like, it's no... basically, there's no shame in losing to Hermasman, but I think Gastelum bounces back hard with this one. I think he gets the knockout. I think he absolutely gets the knockout. I think that it'll be first round.
Big prediction.
He's a far better fighter.
Yeah.
I to be honest, I think it looks like the UFC are giving him, in my opinion, they're just giving him a fight to get back onto the back onto the win column. I'm picking him by knockout. Big left hand, finding the target. He might have to absorb 1 or 2 of those low kicks, but I think he'll get in. If you look at it, you mentioned about length and size. It doesn't really bother Gastelum in regarding length. He doesn't mind being the shorter fighter. He has really good inside boxing. But him at 170 just makes way more sense for me. Yes, it's a stacked division, but he has a better frame for it. He's got phenomenal power. I'd love to see him going back down. I think it would suit him much better, him being more disciplined. But on Saturday night in 185, I think it's knockout in the first round.
Yeah, and I've Heinisch by TKO, I reckon, in the second round. I think he picks apart the legs early and then moves in with some clinical striking. I'm going
to get my my numbers back in order on you then, so we'll be level next week.
So the next fight on the card, I believe, I'm not really sure of the running order right now because it's different on every website you look on. But the next fight in the card is Maki Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. And for me, this is going to be fight of the night. If you've ever watched either of these guys fight, they both have a crazy chin on them. They like to trade. They like to get in a war. And neither guy is going to take a backward step. Now, they've had rough enough runs of late in the UFC. Obviously, Julian Marquez, he's only losses to Alessio De Chirico in his last 3 fights. But, you look at the Darren Stewart fight, he got weathered or beaten early, weathered the storm, came out and got the victory. Very similar in his Dana White Contender Series performance. He got beaten badly against Hawes early, came back for the victory. Maki Pitolo, on the other hand, he's 1-3 in his last 4. He kind of needs to pick up a victory. But my concern for him here is that he's a little bit undersized for the division, similar to Gastelum. He's moved up from 170. He's a little outsized, and that slick boxing will only work so much when you're against the guys of Marquez's size. Marquez is one of the biggest guys in the division. For me, I have Marquez winning this on points. I do see it going to distance, despite both guys having knockout power. How do you see this fight going?
Firstly, I think you're absolutely phenomenal at selling fights. You like the Gastelum fight. You make it sound like it's going to be a tight one, and you've done the same here. I think Marquez blows through, blows through him in this
Ooh,
one.
I don't
It,
know.
yeah, I think so. I think that you look at previous opponent like Darren Stewart. I don't like doing that. I usually get onto you for doing that, but
Yeah, yeah.
you look at their most recent run. You look at their size. You look at their styles. I think Marquez puts him away again. Now I'm not saying maybe first round, but I think that he'll get a KO TKO finish.
Yeah,
Um, but again, I just think it's a. I could be wrong. I have been wrong,
yeah.
but I think it's a not an easy fight, but I think it's a pretty easy one to predict, in my opinion.
Yeah, Marquez certainly has more routes to victory here, like because he does have possess that guillotine, and he always kind of goes to that the Kimura lock as well. If it does get into grappling exchanges, and we know Pitolo is susceptible to a guillotine, so maybe that might be an avenue for the finish. But I think if both these guys stand and bang with both their chins and both their power, we could be in for an absolute classic, a war. Now I know you think obviously the size is a factor, and that Marquez will put him away, but Pitolo's chin is absolutely phenomenal. Like if you go back to the Kasangani fight, and you look how many times Kasangani clipped him hard, and Kasangani's a big guy for that division as well. And Darren Stewart caught him a couple of times with big hands and couldn't put
Yeah,
Pitolo away. I don't know if Marquez will be able to do it.
I think Marquez is going to, well, what I think he should do is his best route to victory is to try and mix it up and to try and
Yeah,
wear him out that little bit. You know, if they're just going to kickbox or just going to do 3-5s, you know, I that's you're evening in the odds way too much. But if Marquez plays it smart, which I think he will, I think he'll add some grappling exchanges in. He'll make Patola work a little bit more, and I
yeah,
think that way he can weather him down and get a finish, whether it's by TKO ground and pound or by submission.
yeah. And the final fight on the main card is, of course, Jim Miller versus Bobby Green.
Mm.
Two guys that have been there forever. They've actually had 51 combined UFC fights so up to this point, which is absolutely phenomenal. Now the majority of them were, of course, in Jim Miller's favor. He's 36. They're both 3-2 in their last 5. They both lost their last fight. Jim Miller to Vince Pichel, Bobby Green to Thiago Moises. The one thing I would say here is Miller's looked well of late. He's put on some good performances, and even in the Pichel loss, I actually scored that very, very close. Pichel obviously took the second round. I thought Miller took the first round, and that third round was razor close until the very end when Pichel was on top landing strikes. All that said, I just think Bobby Green on the feet, he's a little bit tidier, and he's very difficult to take down. You look at the Alan Patrick fight now. Alan Patrick isn't of Jim Miller's caliber, but he just couldn't get the takedown. He stuffed everything, and his transitions were very good. So I can see Bobby Green picking up a victory by decision here.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth with that one. I think both of these guys are great. I think Jim Miller, and again, he has looked great as of late. You look at Clay Guida last weekend; he looked fantastic. These older guys and these vets are kind of starting to have this good resurgence. But Bobby Green, I think, is not he's not craftier, but I just think he will keep the fight at his range. He'll avoid the takedowns, and he'll do enough to just outpoint. I think not just outpoint. I think he'll damage Miller. I think Miller will land his shots too. Both guys are very good in all areas. Miller definitely has the grappling advantage in my opinion, but I don't think he'll get it there. I think Green's athleticism and his he's a crafty vet. He'll know how to keep it at distance. He'll know how to keep it standing. So I think Bobby Green will take this one, but it'll be a great fight. I wouldn't be surprised if this one is fight tonight. To be honest, I think this is going to be.
This is your pick, so
for fight tonight, I think so. Yeah.
And,
on the main card.
And you have Bobby Green.
Yes.
Very good. Now, I suppose just before we sign off, is there any of the prelims that you're interested in, or is there anything that you are looking at on the undercard that catches your attention?
Yeah, I have 2 fights for my bet of the week. I have 2 fights from the undercard, along with 2 fights from the main card. So I have.
So we'll get to the bet of the week. So do you want to go first?
Yes, I'm going to go with Kevin Gastelum, Ricky Simon. I'm going to go with Julian Marquez, and I'm going to go with Bilal Muhammad as well. I'm going to pick all 4 to win.
Just to win.
Just to win. I'm going to play it safe. Now, if you want to play it safer than me, take out Marquez and go with Mohamed Bilal, Ricky Simon, and Kevin Gastelum.
I'm gonna have to
Those
push
three.
you. I'm gonna have to push you. You're going treble or quad.
Do you know what? I'm going to go with a treble this week. I'm taking Marquez out of that because you know what? We need to turn this thing around. We need to turn this ship around, Paul.
Definitely.
Let's go Kevin Gastelum, Ricky Simon, and Bilal Mohammed for all to win.
No problem. My bet of the week is Julian Marquez, Bobby Green, and Macy Barber to win treble.
Oh. Two trebles, but two different trebles.
Yeah. Macy Barber is going to be, she's probably shorter odds than the fight would indicate, but I just think she's going to bounce back here. So yeah, I have Barber, Green, and Marquez in my bet of the week for the treble.
Okay.
Before we go, I suppose obviously with fights coming up with Bellator and with the UFC, what are you looking forward to in the next few weeks with regard to big events coming up?
Yeah, well, look, I was just thrilled, firstly, to hear, I knew that Bellator were working very hard on getting everything back on track, and you can't rush these things with COVID and everything else going on. But I was just thrilled to get the news that Bellator were back and with 4 shows lined up and more to come. So, it's the light heavyweight tournament is phenomenal. So we've that to look forward to. We got from my own selfish perspective, I get to see the bantamweight belt being contested for, and hopefully get 1 or 2 fights to contest that too. But this fight card on UFC 258 is getting a lot of heat. But the main card for me, or the main event in particular, is something worth tuning in for alone. I know there's a lot of fantastic fights, but I cannot wait to see the main card. Yeah. And yes, we both have Usman picked, and we both think that he'll do the job. But Burns has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and he could make it a very, very close fight, or he could even eke it. But look, there's a lot to look forward. What are you looking forward to the most, Paul, in the coming weeks?
Yeah, for me, I think Bellator timed this very well because obviously UFC have this huge march ahead of us. There's 5 title fights in 1 month. And then you have Bellator returning right off the back of that, and it's just they're gonna start bouncing off each other. They have some great cards on some great times when there's not UFC cards on and stuff like that. The next 8 weeks of MMA is going to be absolutely fantastic, and there's I believe there's 11 titles on the line in the next, or 12 titles on the line in the next 8 weeks between the two promotions. So there's definitely fights to be tuning in for almost every week. But yeah, it's exciting times.
I think it's for fight fans as well, but I think both promotions, as many other promotions, I think everybody is so eager to make 2021 a great one.
Yeah,
because of the shit show 2020 was. Now we got to see great fights, but I think people are just more motivated to put on great shows and great fights. So, look at those the next 8 weeks, like you said, we've a lot to look forward to as fight fans.
Yep, exactly. Listen, thank you very much for tuning in to the ProAm Predictions. Again, we will be back next week with more predictions on upcoming fights. And like and subscribe on YouTube and check us out on social medias.